Alabama survived Texas, beating the Longhorns 20-19. And let's be honest, I don't think nobody, even Longhorns fans, expected this game to even be close. And you look at Texas. This team was a 20.5 point underdog heading into this matchup. You know, the question that we were all asking for the whole entire week was, can Texas keep this game close? Most of us were not asking, can Texas win this game? It was, can Texas keep the game close? And then you have Texas who comes into the game and all of a sudden they look like one of the best teams in college football. Quinn Ewers, if he never got injured, I feel Texas would have won this game because this guy was on absolute fire. This dude was making some of the craziest throws that I have ever seen a college quarterback make. Quinn Ewers was making NFL elite level throws. And when he got injured, I got the breath taken out of my stomach or the air taken out of my lungs, however you want to word it, because I just knew from that point Alabama was going to find a way to win the game. Now, Hudson Card didn't play bad. As a matter of fact, Hudson Card played pretty well because you look at Alabama's defensive line with Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and company. They were getting pressure on Hudson Card on a good amount of occasions. However, Hudson Card, I feel, did a good job at making pretty good decisions. The only thing I felt Hudson Card in Texas in the end was the fact that he couldn't push the ball downfield like Quinn Ewers could. He couldn't make those hard NFL level throws that Quinn Ewers could have made. So when you look at Hudson Card, I feel he had a pretty good showing in this game. But overall, the reason why Alabama found the way to win this game in the end and why Texas lost was because of Bryce Young. And that's why I feel if Quinn Ewers would have played the whole entire game and never gotten hurt, Texas would have won, because the difference between beating a team like Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State is quarterback play. You're not going to beat Alabama with terrible quarterback play. You're going to need elite or crazy historic level quarterback play when it comes to taking down Alabama. And Hudson Card played good, but he didn't play great. When you think about all of the teams who have beaten Alabama in the past, they all had very good performances from their quarterbacks. And some even had historical level performances from their quarterback. And it's not like you need a great quarterback to beat Alabama, but you do need a great performance from your quarterback when you do play Alabama if you want to beat them. And I think for Hudson Card, there were moments in this game where he just came up a little bit too small. And for Texas, you know, their defense deserves a huge round of applause because they were outstanding in this game. The most impressive play that Texas had on defense, to me, was when they got that big 4th-and-1 stop late in the fourth quarter that led to Texas going ahead and getting that field goal, which put them in the lead 19-17. And I was really surprised at how well Texas secondary played against the passing attack of Alabama, because Alabama is absolutely loaded at every single position. When you look at their wide receiver position, absolutely nasty. Their offensive line didn't play all that well in this game. And I think that Texas defensive line was one of the biggest keys for why this game was so close. And then on top of that, you look at the fact that Alabama could never really get in sync until when it mattered the most. Bryce Young at one point had under 100 yards passing, at least going into the third quarter, if I can remember correctly. That's a statistic that I never thought I would see pop up on my television screen, because Bryce Young and this Alabama offense, at least when you look at them on paper, have the most talented offense in all of college football. And the fact that they struggled the way they did against Texas is, I feel, a big testament to the game plan and the preparation that the defensive coordinator for Texas and his whole entire staff put together was absolutely fantastic. And if you're a Bama fan, you're going to say, well, JT, the play calling from Bill O'Brien was not great. And that is fair. You know, there were a couple of plays that I definitely feel Bill O'Brien definitely wish he could have back. But there are a lot of plays that all play callers feel they could have back. Same thing with Steve Sarkisian. There are a good amount of plays that he wishes he could have had back. And I feel his play calling late in the game could have been a lot better. But I honestly just feel like you can't put the blame fully on Bill O'Brien. And you can't put the blame fully on Alabama's defensive coordinator neither. You got to put the blame on Nick Saban. You can say all you want to about Bill O'Brien and his play calling, but Nick Saban, you know, this was the first time in my whole entire life watching college football that I can remember an Alabama team going into a game where they didn't look disciplined and they didn't look prepared. Alabama had 15 penalties in this game. And a lot of these penalties were penalties that could have been avoided. And then on top of that, you had my guy Kool-Aid McKinstry. He didn't really have a great game. You know, they were picking on him a good bunch. It's just, when you look at the preparation of Alabama, it has to be put in question into this game. And you know, I know some Bama fans are going to get upset, and they're probably going to say, JT, how dare you criticize Nick Saban, the GOAT? But I just feel like Nick Saban and Alabama were overlooking Texas. And they got shocked in the mouth. Okay? Or not shocked. They got punched in the mouth. Because Texas played one of the best games that I have seen that program played in a decade. And I wasn't watching college football back in the 2000s and whatnot, but Texas played phenomenally. And you look at Alabama, the fact that that defense still wasn't really looking all that great against Hudson Card, Texas backup quarterback, you know, I have more questions about Alabama coming out of this game than I do Texas. And I guess that's because my expectations for Alabama were way more higher compared to the expectations that I had for Texas coming into this game. But you know, for Alabama, it's just that you looked at this team on paper and all of the superstars that they acquired from the transfer portal. You look at how dominant they looked against Utah State. You just expected a more dominant win. You expected a more dominant performance out of Alabama. And even if this was going to be a close game, you know, you never really felt like Alabama was in control of this game. You know, there has been a lot of occasions where Alabama was in a tough game, but yet they still somewhat felt in control. But yet in this game, Alabama at no point in this game really felt in control. Texas really had their foots on Alabama's neck all the way to the end. And I think for Texas, you know, another reason why you lost this game is because you couldn't deliver the fatal blow to Alabama. For all of my Mortal Kombat fans out there, if you ever played the Mortal Kombat games, whenever you have your opponent on the ropes, you'll have the finish him pop up, and that's when you can hit your finisher. Texas could never deliver the finisher to Alabama. And they allowed Alabama to stay in this game all the way into the very final minutes. And that's something that you cannot allow to happen when you're facing a team like Alabama. Because teams like Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson, when you play them, it seems like they have like this little trapdoor button. And the trapdoor button is a glitch in the game that allows them to just find ways to get back into games and to win games that you feel they should have lost. Because if you were to ask anybody right now who played better in that game, everybody would say Texas. And I know it sounds weird to say a team that lost played better, but that's just outright truth. But I just feel like when you're trying to beat Alabama, you have to not allow them to use that trapdoor button. And Texas allowed them to use that trapdoor button because you gave Bryce Young, with the minute and some change to operate, you gave Alabama in this offense just way too much time. And, you can't allow Alabama to win the game. You have to win the game. And for Texas, I definitely feel like Steve Sarkisian, if he was to ask which unit would he rather have had on the field to win the game, the defense or the offense, I'm pretty sure he'd rather have had the offense out there. Now, I could be wrong because the defense was having a really outstanding game, but at the same time, it's just with Texas, they just were never able to go out there and make the big plays that you needed to make to truly pull off this upset. In the big moments of this game, they weren't able to deliver. Now, they did deliver on some big moments. The 4th and 1 stop was huge. That put them up, and making that field goal was extremely huge because you know how kicking is in football nowadays. Shoot, you give a kicker 10 yards to make the field goal, he still finds a way to miss it. So for Texas, there were just a couple of big moments that you missed out on. Meanwhile, when you look at Appalachian State, and we're about to talk about them a little bit later on this episode of the podcast, they delivered on almost every single big moment. And when you look at Appalachian State, their upset wasn't a blowout or anything like that. It was tightly contested. It was a 17-14 win. It wasn't pretty, but Appalachian State, delivered on all of the opportunities that they had in the big moments. And that's something that Texas simply did not do in this game. However, I just still in the end strongly believe that if Quinn Ewers would have played in this game for its entirety, Texas would have won. Because Alabama simply, I feel, had no answers for Quinn Ewers. And when Quinn Ewers, before he went down, that dude was on fire. That dude was red hot. And the throws he was making were absolutely insane. The ball placement, the accuracy, the timing. And he's going to be missing a significant amount of time. He may not even play this season. And I'm really sad about it. Because I really want to see more Quinn Ewers. But you guys let me know your thoughts on this game, your reaction, your analysis. Why do you guys feel Texas lost? Leave it down in the comment section down below. And when we talk about players of the game, and of course for Alabama, we're going to give it to Bryce Young because he didn't play his best game, but he definitely delivered when it mattered the most in the fourth quarter. He had a touchdown when he was like running around. He hit Jahmyr Gibbs in the red zone. Of course, we remember that big play, which pretty much won the game for Alabama. He broke out of that sack late in the fourth quarter, setting up Alabama in field goal range, which they would eventually go on to win the game off that field goal. But you also have to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. And Jahmyr Gibbs didn't have a great performance on the ground. Texas defensive line was pretty good. But Jahmyr Gibbs was really big in the passing game for Alabama. He had 9 receptions for 74 receiving yards, and he pretty much was Alabama's best receiver, and he's only a running back. So for Jahmyr Gibbs, man, I don't think enough people are talking about his performance and how big he was for Alabama sniffing out this win. And Will Anderson, even he showed up in this game. He had a big sack. So for Alabama, your 3 big star players delivered when you needed them to deliver in the biggest moments. And that's all you can really ask for. But if you're Nick Saban, you're definitely not happy about this. And if you're Steve Sarkisian, you and your team right now, you're hurting from this. But I'm really intrigued in seeing, how Texas performs for the rest of the year. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later.